By definition, a drug is anything that alters the normal course of body functioning. A psychoactive drug is something that not only changes the way the body works, but also alters the mood, emotions, and psychological process of the brain. Alcohol, being a depressant drug, changes the physical body in many ways. It starts to slow the heart rate, it slows breathing, it can even put various body systems to sleep, causing them to stop functioning for a period of time. As alcohol depresses the brain, it not only causes changes in the physical activities of the brain, but by causing such depression, it actually causes a change in your feelings, in your emotions, and in your ability to rationally think. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Recovery Couch. I'm your host, Brandon Couch, and we're continuing our series called Learning Together, where we're taking a deep dive into addiction, the stages of addiction, recovery treatment, the neurobiology of addiction. And today we're going to dive into drugs of abuse. But before we do, let's have a quick word from our sponsor. The Recovery Couch is brought to you by JB Davis at South Dayton Toyota. For integrity, service, and unbeatable deals, ask for JB and South Dayton Toyota and tell them the Recovery Couch sent you. The Recovery Couch is also brought to you by Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. Whether you're buying or selling your home, Greg brings heart, hustle, and honesty to every deal. Call Greg at 937-477-8975 today. The Recovery Couch is a true story media production where we focus on bringing real stories and raw redemption to the spotlight. Go check us out at www.recoverycouch.com. So back into the content. Today we're diving into drugs of abuse. We're going to start with alcohol. And we're going through a book called Getting Ready to Test, a review preparation manual for drug and alcohol credentialing. So the chapter starts off with brief information about alcohol. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. It is the most abused drug in our society, past, present, and probably future. It can cause intoxication, unconsciousness, and in some cases, death. It is as potent as many of the illegal drugs and can be potentially fatal when mixed with other drugs. Drinking and driving are a particularly dangerous mix. Impairment occurs well before the point of legal intoxication. Alcohol can cause severe damage to a developing fetus, and alcoholism is a very treatable disease. The facts on alcohol: it's the most widely used, most widely accepted drug known to mankind, past, present, and future. It's the simplest of all the psychoactive drugs as far as the chemical compound is what it's saying. C2H5OH is the chemical compound, which is the most basic elements in nature: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. It's also known as ethanol, ethyl alcohol, or ETOH. Alcohol is a depressant drug similar to the anesthetic drug ether. If you were to take two molecules of ETOH and heat, you would be left with the compound C4H10O, which is ether. So if you double alcohol, the compounds in alcohol, the molecules, if you double those, then you would get ether. Alcohol is the only non-medical drug taken only by mouth. Whereas other drugs have multiple methods of use, alcohol is predominantly a drug taken orally. You could indeed soak your feet in a vat of brandy and raise your blood alcohol level, but this is not something that could be done with much social grace. That's a kind of a funny ad lib to throw into a credentialing exam book. You can inject it into your vein, but the physical harm this could cause might be life-threatening. And there are also reported cases of a late-stage alcoholic who can no longer drink alcohol due to the destruction of their intestinal system, so they do it by giving themselves enemas. Alcohol is the only drug with a large number of those who use it do not become physically dependent upon it. It is estimated that 10% of the drinking population are dependent on alcohol, approximately 15 million Americans. Many other drugs have addiction rates as high as 50 to 60% of those who use them, including marijuana, heroin, and cocaine. Because of this fact, the majority of drinkers view alcohol as being relatively safe and tend to not view alcohol as a drug. By definition, a drug is anything that alters the normal course of body functioning. A psychoactive drug is something that not only changes the way the body works, but also alters the mood, emotions, and psychological process of the brain. Alcohol, being a depressant drug, changes the physical body in many ways. It starts to slow the heart rate, it slows breathing, can even put various body systems to sleep, causing them to stop functioning for a period of time. As alcohol depresses the brain, it not only causes changes in the physical activities of the brain, but by causing such depression, it actually causes a change in your feelings, in your emotions, and in your ability to rationally think. Alcohol is the only drug that contains calories, yet these are wasted calories because beers and wines are clarified. This process removes the vitamins and nutritional value of the beverage. Many late-stage alcoholics who rely solely on alcohol for their daily food intake suffer serious medical problems related to malnutrition because of this. Because alcohol goes through a process where the vitamins and nutritional values are removed, called clarified. Types of alcohol. When we talk about alcohol, we are talking about beverage alcohol, ethanol. The common varieties of beverage alcohol are beer, both the regular and low-calorie light beers, made from various cereal grains such as barley, rye, corn, and wheat. The process of making beer is referred to as brewing, in which grains are converted from a cereal broth starch to fermentable sugar, fermented, and stored and aged for a certain period of time. The resulting product contains from 3 to 6% alcohol by volume, with the typical regular beer, also known as lager beer, containing approximately 4% alcohol. Light beers generally contain about 3.25% alcohol. Malt liquor is a more delicate, aromatic flavor and contains between 4 and 5% alcohol. Ale, stout, and porter beers are more bitter with a full-bodied taste and alcohol content between 6 and 7%. Wine, made from the fermented juice of grapes or other fruits, is another type of alcohol. A variety of wine products exist on the market today. There are soda pop wines such as Boone's Farm, TJ Swan, etc. They have an alcohol content of about 8%. Wine coolers, fruit-flavored wines, range from 4% alcohol up to 9% alcohol by volume. Table wines, your reds, whites, rose, sparkling, or champagnes, contain anywhere from 10 to 14% alcohol. Fortified wine, for example, Mad Dog 2020, contain up to 21% alcohol. Dessert or cocktail wines like sherry, port, Madeira, vermouth range from 15% to 24% alcohol by volume. And that is because they add neutral distilled spirits or brandy to the table wines. Some of the cheapest table wines manufactured in Europe, may also have alcohol concentrations of up to 24% by taking wine and fortifying it with distilled spirits or some other form of alcohol, most commonly methanol or wood alcohol. Then there are distilled spirits. These are made from a variety of fermented mixtures that are heated in a still. Whiskey, vodka, gin, and brandy are mixtures of cereal grains or fruits, while rum is derived from molasses, and tequila is made from the fermented juice of the mescal cactus plant. Alcohol has a lower boiling point than the other substances in the fermented mixture. It boils off first, the vapors are then collected, cooled, and condensed. These distilled fluids have a relatively high alcohol content, along with some water and flavors from the fermented mixture. The alcohol content generally ranges from 40 to 50% or 80 to 100 proof. To figure out a proof, you just double the alcohol content. That gives you your proof. And no distilled beverage can be 100% pure ethanol because alcohol is so toxic it will dilute itself with water from the air around it at about 98% pure. So that's relative for probably moonshiners who try to make the most pure alcohol that you can get and sell it on the black market, which is illegal. If you hear them say that theirs is 100% pure, that's impossible because it's so toxic that the air itself will dilute the alcohol, and the highest quality that a pure distilled alcohol or spirit can be is 98%, just scientifically. So for those who have justified alcohol as being socially acceptable, it is. It's probably the most socially acceptable psychoactive drug substance in the world. It's legal for people 21 and up. But as we just learned in this chapter, alcohol is created just like drugs are created. You can't say, well, cocaine comes from a cocoa leaf. Well, it goes through a process, a man-made process at that, where they have to ferment the fruit, or they have to distill the spirits, or they have to mash the grapes and ferment the grapes into the mashed grapes into wine. These are man-made processes that have created these psychoactive drugs, which is the case in almost every single one of these drugs, I think, aside from marijuana, which is kind of the mystery that I've heard discussed so often in so many circles about, like, why did God put the marijuana seed on the plant, or seed on the earth? Was it for consumption? Who knows? I don't want to condone. That's not what I'm condoning, but it's the only psychoactive drug that we're going to discuss throughout these drugs of abuse that didn't originally go through a process of becoming man-made. So I want to keep these episodes short. Today was a discussion on alcohol. Alcohol is frequently misused. Alcohol is easy to gain a dependence and an addiction on. Alcohol has serious effects on the body, especially the liver. Alcohol has serious legal ramifications. If you're drunk on alcohol publicly, you can get public intox. If you're drinking and driving, you can get a DUI. Alcohol as a business is big business. Americans on average are spending in excess of $98 billion on beverage alcohol and bars, taverns, restaurants, and takeout stores. So it's going to affect you financially. Beer is the most popular form of beverage alcohol, followed by wine and distilled spirits. Percentages of beverages consumed are as follow. Beers, 46% of all consumed alcohol. Wine is 17%. And distilled spirits are 37%. Yeah, I think that adds up to 100%. If not, the book's wrong. Acute effects on alcohol absorption. Once alcohol is swallowed and enters the stomach, the process begins. Even though it contains calories, alcohol requires no digestion and passes readily through the walls of the stomach, where tiny blood vessels pick up the alcohol. And approximately 20% of the alcohol consumed enters the blood in this fashion, while the rest must pass through the stomach into the small intestine to be absorbed. When you're mixing drinks with pop or another non-alcoholic beverage, that dilutes the alcohol, slowing the absorption. Food in the stomach delays absorption, but this in turn may mean that the peak blood alcohol concentration won't be reached for several hours. The way alcohol is distributed is once it reaches the bloodstream, it then travels to all body parts. Organs with higher concentrations of water or dense networks of blood vessels and a richer blood supply, like the brain, kidneys, liver, and lungs, reach the same blood alcohol concentration of the blood very rapidly. Intoxication occurs as the BAC increases faster than the body can remove alcohol from the blood. The blood alcohol concentration remains at a peak until equilibration occurs, which is the equal distribution of alcohol to all body tissues. Body water is the key to an increasing BAC, blood alcohol concentration. The more body water, the more dilute the alcohol, the lower the rise in blood alcohol concentration. So the more hydrated that somebody is that drinks alcohol, that is the primary way to being hydrated is how you keep your blood alcohol concentration down if you drink alcohol. I think the myth is that a belly full of food, but the myth's busted in scientifically because a belly full of food only delays the peak of your blood alcohol concentration, while being hydrated is what will lower the rise in your blood alcohol concentration. The elimination of alcohol is a toxic product. The LD50, which means lethal dose of alcohol, is between 12 to 9 ounces of pure alcohol, the equivalent of about a fifth and a half of 80 proof spirits or a case of beer. That's the lethal dose. The body will begin to eliminate it immediately upon intake. Since water is the primary mechanism used to dilute and eliminate alcohol, salivation will increase, diluting the alcohol entering the system. So your body recognizes alcohol as toxic and starts to use its own defense systems, salivation, to try to eliminate or lower the alcohol content. Since water is the primary mechanism used to dilute and eliminate alcohol, your salivation will continue to increase, which is why alcohol may burn going down. The cells of the throat burst to give up their water. Didn't know that. This effect is most noticeable with straight spirits rather than beer or wine, or shots. That's why shots burn. Your body is reacting to the toxicity of what you're putting in it. 2 to 5% of all alcohol is eliminated unchanged in urine, perspiration, and respiration. The remainder must be eliminated through the detoxification and oxidation process. So every time you put alcohol in your body, you're really putting your body through an entire science project. The liver is the only organ that can detoxify alcohol, that is, change ethyl alcohol to acetaldehyde, acetaldehyde back to acetic acid, or to acetic acid. So let's read that again. The liver is the only organ that can detoxify alcohol, that is, change ethyl alcohol to acetaldehyde, acetaldehyde to acetic acid. It detoxifies 95 to 98% of all alcohol that enters the system. Once the liver has detoxified alcohol to acetaldehyde, acetaldehyde to acetic acid, all the organs that possess a dense network of blood vessels can burn or oxidize the acetic acid. The liver oxidizes about 75% of the alcohol consumed. Other body organs eliminate about 20% of the alcohol. The metabolic rate for elimination is typically about a half ounce per hour. I think that's a common misconception. I think there's certain people that believe that they sobered up quickly. I've heard it a million times, to be honest with you. Somebody will be like, and then the cops came and I sobered up quickly. And I think what this is teaching us is each individual's metabolic rate is the only thing that determines how fast you sober up. You can have mental alertness quickly. You can go from, having, like mental depression from the depressant, which we got into a few episodes ago about what's happening at the synaptic cleft, how depressants are basically creating a log jam at the synaptic cleft, making it hard for stimuli to pass through. And that's why you get chill and relaxed, while stimulants basically create an open highway at the synaptic cleft, allowing for stimuli to rush through there, which is why people on stimulants are super alert. So scientifically, that's the entire myth busted of some sort of change in scenery can sober somebody up, or a cup of coffee or a cold shower. Those things will not sober you up, but they can increase your alertness. So some acute physical effects of alcohol: it affects your digestive system. The lining of the gastrointestinal tract is noticeably affected by the presence of alcohol. Alcohol acts as an irritant, causing the stomach to produce a larger than normal flow of hydrochloric acid, not hydraulic, sorry. the way it affects your heart and circulation. Low doses of alcohol initially increase the heart rate and blood pressure. Then it begins to sedate your heart muscle. As more alcohol enters the system, the pumping power of the heart is reduced, and this condition can cause irregular heart rhythms that can be detected on an EKG reading. This effect often occurs even in healthy drinkers and is known as the holiday heart syndrome, since many social drinkers notice this change in heart rhythm during excess drinking at various holidays. So alcohol is affecting your heart. Each time you drink, red blood cells are killed by the toxic effect of alcohol. These drinks actually kill as many platelets as the body produces in any given day. As the red cells and platelets float in the system, the body absorbs some and reuses the components to make new blood cells. Recently, the wine industry has been promoting the health benefits of red wine on the heart. There was a 60-minute story that actually talked about the lower rate of heart disease in France as a result of drinking beaucoup red wine, which means a lot in French. That I know. Beaucoup. Apparently, there's a chemical in red wine called resveratrol. It works to lower cholesterol. And then after the story, sales of red wine increased 30%, which to me sounds like people are looking for an excuse to drink. How it affects the endocrine. There are noticeable effects on the system of glands and organs that secrete products that regulate our body. In the pancreas, insulin is secreted to control the level of blood sugar because of its irritant effect. Alcohol causes the pancreas to release additional insulin, which depletes blood sugar, causing a condition known as hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. In mild cases, the symptoms are sweating, nervousness, weakness, or confusion. So it's going to affect your blood sugar. It's going to affect your internal organs. And it can affect you negatively socially. I think that people tend to focus on the positive social effects of lowered inhibitions, ability to conversate and have less anxiety, but it can also have some adverse effects socially: sweating, nervousness, weakness, or confusion. Or worst case scenario, you're falling down drunk. It affects the central nervous system. The central nervous system is actually the largest water carrying organ, and the effects of alcohol on the brain are the most noticeable. The brain is comprised of a variety of sections, each having control over various body aspects. Since alcohol is a depressant drug, it sedates the brain from the outside in, from the cerebral cortex to the medullary functions, the deepest brain functions. And there's various levels of activity that are affected by the presence of alcohol in the brain. One is your intellect is affected when you drink alcohol. Two, your emotion is affected when you drink alcohol. Three, your motor function is affected when you drink alcohol. Four, another function level of the brain that's affected is semi-voluntary function. Five, your involuntary function. And six, your vital function. These are serious, serious things. Alcohol can also have an effect on your sleep. For hundreds of years, alcohol has been used to aid in the process of sleep. But today, many physicians prescribe 2 drinks of brandy before bedtime to help promote restful sleep, because alcohol is a depressant drug that causes sedation on the central nervous system. However, the benefits of alcohol on sleep are greatly exaggerated and actually counterproductive. So there's 2 primary mechanisms that determine our ability to sleep. One is the reticular activating system, the RAS. The job of the RAS is to tell the body when to be alert and active, and it supports neurochemicals necessary to activate the system. Functions of the medulla oblongata, which we got into the brain stuff a few episodes ago. And the RAS is our internal clock that knows when we need to wake up and be active and for what period of time we need to maintain this activity. So for anybody who's ever said, my internal clock woke me up at 4 a.m., well, that's actually your reticular activating system. Throughout the day, the same system, the RAS, it's triggering messages to the brain that keep a steady flow of energy to help keep our bodies working. And as we approach our period of sleep, the RAS begins to slow the release of neurochemicals, allowing the body to begin slowing down in anticipation of sleep. So we go into multiple stages of sleep. First stage, stage 1, is the sleep. It's just the sleep period. It's the period between sleep and wakefulness. Generally lasts from 2 to 10 minutes in most individuals. This stage makes up 5% of our total night's sleep. From there, we go into stage 2 of sleep, non-dreaming sleep, NREM. This accounts for 40 to 60% of our night's sleep and is a medium, deep, and restful sleep. Stage 2 sleep deepens to stages 3 and 4, which are characterized by specific EEG patterns known as the delta waves. This is the soundest sleep we have. This lasts anywhere from a few minutes up to 2 hours and occurs only during the first 1 to 3 hours of sleep. It accounts for 10 to 20% of our total night's sleep. Those people who suffer from alcoholism, REM rebound occurs in recovery as the body forces itself to dream. However, as important as REM sleep is, after a heavy bout of drinking, REM sleep does not occur. This is why so many people after a heavy night of drinking report sleeping like the dead but wake up tired and irritable or hungover. Blackouts are another effect of alcoholism. A blackout is an amnesia-like period often associated with heavy drinking. It's where the person who drank to in excess doesn't remember anything that he or she did. And they'll say it in terms like, last night I blacked out. And then the hangover. The hangover is a familiar after effect of overindulgence of alcohol that causes fatigue combined with nausea, upset stomach, headache, thirst, depression, anxiety, general malaise, sensitivity to sound, and ill temper. Hangovers are not fun and they aren't very well understood. What was that movie? A Beautiful Mind, where Russell Crowe's character said that a hangover was the lack of water in the body for the body to be able to produce the Krebs cycle or something like that. I always thought that was true. I don't know. Maybe it's a movie. Hangovers suck. Let's just put it that way. You don't want one. How do I know? You're watching The Recovery Couch. So that's all we're going to really dive into with alcohol. Because it's so socially accepted, many people believe that it's not very serious as far as the health concerns, and it's not approached as cautiously as it should be. Alcohol is a very serious psychoactive drug that has very serious effects on the body, not just when it's consumed, with your motor skills and things of that nature, but it's having a serious effect on your internal organs, specifically your liver, and the long-term effects can be deadly. And if you indulge in excess, the results can be deadly as well. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Recovery Couch. Hope you enjoyed the content. We're going to continue to dive deeper into drugs of abuse. Until then, if you want to hear my story, go check out my book, Step Forward Journey Through Addiction. It's out now, every book retailer you can imagine, or just go to the link in the bio. I have a link in every single bio that you can see this on, whether it's on my social media accounts, YouTube, Spotify. Go to the link in the bio and pick up the book, read it. I'm getting great reviews on it, which means the world to me. And look out for our newsletter. If you're interested in getting signed up for the newsletter to see what we got going on, go to recoverycouch.com, www.recoverycouch.com, and send us your email address and we'll get you on the newsletter and talk, just keep you posted on all the lives that we're touching, the hearts that, we're touching, and it's the good that God's up to in this mission of recovery. And check us out on Recovery Couch Inner Circle, which is a Patreon page. Become a member. You can get live bonus content, question and answer sessions, and some just exclusive content only to the members who go onto the Patreon page. Until then, remember that you always have a seat right here on the Recovery Couch.